Have you ever noticed how you used to answer every phone call without a second thought, and now it rings, and you just stare at it? Maybe even let it go to voicemail without a hint of guilt? Or when someone knocks at the door unexpectedly, your first reaction isn't excitement anymore. It's more like a quick freeze, hoping they'll just go away quietly. If any of this sounds familiar, take a deep breath. You're not becoming a recluse. You're not broken. What you're experiencing is something so deeply human. It's part of aging. And believe it or not, it's not just normal, it's healthy. See, in your younger years, social interaction was constant. At work, in your neighborhood, through your kids, during errands, you were surrounded by people, and maybe even energized by it. It felt natural. But as you grow older, something shifts. It's not that you suddenly dislike people. It's just that you don't need them in the same way anymore. And that shift? It's not selfish. It's not cold. It's psychology. Beautiful, logical, well-studied psychology. And today, we're going to unpack the 6 biggest psychological reasons behind why this change happens, and why you should embrace it, not fear it. Let's start with something you've probably already felt deep in your bones. Your tolerance for nonsense drops dramatically. Think back 20 or 30 years. You probably tolerated all sorts of noise, figurative and literal. You sat through long conversations with people who never asked how you were. You endured family gatherings full of drama, friends who only called when they needed something, coworkers who loved the sound of their own voice. You put up with bad jokes, endless gossip, shallow small talk. Why? Maybe because it was easier. Maybe because you didn't want to cause waves. Or maybe you thought you had to. But now, there's a moment when you quietly say to yourself, no more. That moment might come when you're sitting across from someone who hasn't let you get a word in for 20 minutes. Or when you catch yourself smiling politely at a conversation that's draining the life out of you. And instead of forcing it, instead of performing, you simply excuse yourself, or better yet, you don't attend in the first place. You spent a lifetime navigating social expectations, and you finally earned the right to choose silence over noise, peace over pretense. It's not about being rude. It's about protecting your energy. Take Martha, for example. She's 72 now. For decades, she was the glue of every social group she was in. Organized the church potlucks, ran the family reunions, even kept in touch with every single cousin, no matter how distant. But lately, she tells me she started saying no more often. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. I just don't have the energy for all the small talk anymore, she says. And you know what? I don't miss it. Which brings us to the second reason this shift happens. Your priorities change. Profoundly. When you're younger, you're often driven by a desire for approval, connection, and keeping up appearances. You want to be liked. You want to belong. You chase invitations, fill your calendar, host get-togethers, say yes even when you're tired. But with age comes clarity. You stop asking, what will people think if I don't go? And start asking, how will I feel if I do? Your time, your energy, they become more precious. You begin measuring the value of a social interaction not by how many people are there or how much fun it should be, but by one simple question. Does this fill me up or drain me? That's a powerful filter. You find yourself naturally drawn to the people who uplift you and pulling away from those who don't. It's not about cutting people off coldly. It's about quietly choosing quality over quantity. Jim, a retired electrician from Michigan, once told me, I used to think I needed a big group of friends to stay young. Now I realize I just need 1 or 2 folks who really get me, and a whole lot of quiet in between. That shift in perspective, that's not loneliness. That's peace. That's maturity. That's liberation. There's a certain grace that comes with choosing yourself. When you stop showing up just to prove you're still fun or social, and instead start showing up only when it truly matters to your soul. That's when your interactions gain depth. You no longer chase conversations for the sake of filling time. You crave connection, not company. You seek understanding, not just interaction. And when the right people aren't available, you no longer feel that fear of missing out. Instead, you enjoy the stillness. You relish the space. But sometimes, the pull inward is about more than just energy and preferences. Sometimes it's about something much deeper, grief. That's our third psychological reason. As we age, we inevitably experience loss. Friends move away. Loved ones pass on. Old routines fade. And with every loss, a piece of your social world quietly disappears. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, gentle unraveling. And before you know it, that group you used to meet every Thursday afternoon isn't there anymore. The phone rings less. The holidays feel quieter. The invitations stop coming. It's easy to assume this shrinking circle is a sign of something wrong, like depression or decline. But sometimes, it's simply grief doing its quiet work. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It doesn't mean you're sinking. It means you've loved and you've lost, and now you're more selective about where you place your heart. There's a subtle wisdom in that. A sense that you no longer want to rebuild every broken bridge. Not because you're bitter, but because you've learned that not every connection needs to be restored. Some are meant to fade. Helen, who lost her husband 5 years ago, shared something with me that stuck. She said, "I used to feel guilty for not reaching out to people more. But now I just think this is my quiet season. I'm not lonely. I'm just tender. And I want things to be soft around me." That tenderness? That's the soul saying, "I've carried enough. I only have room now for what feels truly safe." And that is nothing to be ashamed of. That's emotional maturity. That's self-protection. That's honoring your heart. And if you've been feeling any of this lately, less interested in chatting, more interested in being still, more likely to say no thank you without explaining why, just know you are far from alone. These changes aren't a breakdown. They're a breakthrough. They're part of becoming more you. Let's keep going, because we've only just begun to scratch the surface of why this shift in your social life feels so deep, so personal, and sometimes so confusing. The fourth reason you begin pulling back from people as you age is something few people talk about. But once you hear it, I think you'll nod your head and say, yes, that's it. It's something called social fatigue. Now, this isn't just the kind of tired you fix with an app. This is a deeper kind of weariness, the kind that builds up after years of navigating group dynamics, managing different personalities, smoothing over tension, playing host, playing nice, smiling when you didn't want to, and keeping conversations afloat even when your mind was screaming to be quiet. Think about it. For decades, you probably carried a lot of emotional weight in your relationships. Maybe you were the mediator in family arguments. Maybe you were the one who always initiated get-togethers, made sure people felt included, sent birthday cards, remembered everyone's favorite dish. That kind of effort adds up. And over time, it wears down your capacity for constant interaction. You might find that something as simple as a 1-hour lunch can wipe you out for the entire afternoon. Not because you didn't enjoy it, but because you no longer bounce back the way you used to. Or maybe you attend a family gathering and realize, about halfway through, that all the noise, all the competing conversations, all the stimulation, it's too much. It feels like running a marathon in your mind. And so, without even meaning to, you begin declining more invitations. You choose rest over obligation. You choose slow, quiet mornings over packed schedules. And that's not laziness. That's wisdom. That's your body and mind finally working together to say, we've done enough performing. Let's just be for a while. I remember a man named Russell, he's 75 now, telling me that for years, he was the life of every party. Always cracking jokes, making rounds, topping up drinks, making sure everyone had a good time. But now, he says, I'd rather sit with one friend on a porch and say nothing for an hour than be in a room with 20 people and have to entertain. That's the essence of social fatigue. You're not pulling away because you don't care anymore. You're pulling away because you care more than ever about your own peace. And here's something important. Just because society tells us that being social is the key to happiness, doesn't mean it's true for everyone. We've been told our whole lives that the more friends we have, the fuller our calendar is, the happier we must be. But here's the twist. Connection doesn't always mean company. Sometimes, connection means being able to sit in a room alone and feel completely at ease. Sometimes, it's having space to hear your own thoughts again, listening to the birds outside, Reading the same book 3 times because you love how it makes you feel. Making tea just for yourself and enjoying every sip without needing to explain why you're not out with anyone. That's not disconnection. That's not avoidance. That's evolution. Let's talk about the 5th reason people become more selective with age. And this one is truly powerful. It's self-awareness. That deep, unshakable understanding of who you are, what you need, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. See, when you're younger, you spend so much time trying to figure yourself out. You try on different versions of you, who you are at work, at home, with friends, in public, online. You adjust yourself to fit into different spaces. You say yes more than you should. You keep quiet to keep the peace. But then one day, you wake up and realize you know yourself. And I mean really know yourself. You know what kinds of conversations lift your spirit. You know which people leave you feeling drained. You understand your emotional limits, your triggers, your need for space. You recognize when a situation isn't right for you, not after weeks of second-guessing, but in the first 5 minutes. That kind of clarity is earned. It doesn't just arrive. It's built through years of experience, both beautiful and painful. So what do you do with this self-awareness? You protect it. You stop forcing yourself to show up to events that don't feel aligned. You stop answering calls from people who only bring negativity. You let go of that pressure to please everyone. And maybe for the first time, you start to choose you consistently, unapologetically. Clara, a 68-year-old former nurse, once told me something that stayed with me. She said, "I spent 40 years fixing everyone else's problems. Now, I just want to protect my peace. I'm not avoiding people. I'm avoiding pain." That distinction matters. You're not closing your heart. You're just learning to guard it more wisely. And with that wisdom comes a startling realization. Your time is more precious now than ever before. That's our 6th reason. Time. Time doesn't feel the same when you're older. When you're 20, an hour feels like nothing. When you're 70, an hour feels like a gift, something to be spent wisely, intentionally, and without regret. You become more mindful of how you use your time and who you give it to. Every lunch, every phone call, every visit, these things begin to feel less like routine and more like investments. You start asking, does this add to my peace or take away from it? And if the answer leans toward discomfort or obligation, you simply don't go. This isn't selfishness. This is self-respect. People around you might not always understand. They might say, "You've changed." And you know what? They're right. You have changed. You've grown. You've stopped spending your energy just to keep everyone else comfortable. You no longer say yes just because you always did. You've started to say no without guilt, and yes only when it truly matters. That's not coldness. That's clarity. And let me tell you something beautiful about this transformation. It might feel like you're stepping away from people, but really, you're stepping toward yourself. You're no longer running around trying to fit in, keep up, or be liked. You're just being you. And the real you? She's enough. He's enough. Right now. Just as you are. So now that we've talked about your energy, your time, and your growing self-awareness, let's take a moment to talk about something else that quietly, but powerfully, affects your social life as you age. Your changing capacity for emotional labor. See, emotional labor isn't about physical effort. It's the effort of always being the one who holds things together. The one who smooths over the awkward silences. The one who remembers to call, checks in when no one else does, makes the plans, sends the texts, keeps the conversation going. You might have spent decades in that role. You might have been the one everyone leaned on, the dependable one, the peacemaker, the caretaker, the glue. But what happens when the glue gets tired? That's the part most people don't talk about. There comes a time when you look around and realize you've been carrying everyone for years and no one's been carrying you. It's not that people are unkind. It's just that they've gotten used to you always showing up, always initiating, always doing the emotional lifting. And after a while, something inside you just says, enough. You begin to wonder, what would happen if I stopped reaching out first? If I didn't plan the gathering? If I didn't make the effort to keep this friendship alive? And when you try it, the silence can be deafening. You may find that without your effort, certain connections fade completely. That's a hard truth, but also a clarifying one. It doesn't mean you were never loved. It doesn't mean the relationship was fake. It just means that, in many cases, you were the one pouring in the most. And now, you're ready to stop betraying your own needs just to keep things going. You begin to trade people-pleasing for peace of mind. And yes, when you do that, some people fall away. But those who stay, they're the real ones. The golden ones. The ones who love you, not just the version of you who always made the effort. I remember speaking with Henry, an 82-year-old former coach, who told me that for most of his life, he was the fixer in his friend group. Always the one who got the guys back together when they drifted apart. Always the one who reached out when someone missed an event. But after a health scare a few years ago, he said something changed. "I just didn't have the energy to chase people anymore," he said. And you know what? Some never called. Some did. And that told me everything I needed to know. That kind of honesty with yourself about what you've given and what you're no longer willing to give is not selfish. It's healthy. It's brave. Now let's talk about something else that contributes to this shift, your physical body. As much as we focus on emotional reasons, there's also the undeniable reality of aging physically. And that plays a huge role in how you socialize. Maybe you've noticed that you tire more easily. A dinner that used to be fun now feels like a chore. The thought of driving at night, sitting in a noisy restaurant, or navigating stairs just doesn't appeal anymore. Your joints ache. Your back stiffens. The room feels too hot or too loud. Suddenly, what used to be an enjoyable evening sounds more like endurance training. This isn't you being difficult. It's your body speaking up. And finally, you're listening. And that's the thing. Your body and your emotions often go hand in hand. The physical fatigue adds to the emotional one. So naturally, you begin to adjust. You turn down evening events. You prefer smaller groups over big ones. You find joy in early afternoon meetups, or better yet, slow mornings by yourself. You create a life that fits your body, instead of forcing your body to keep up with a life that no longer fits. There's a sort of grace in that, too. A gentleness. You begin treating yourself like someone who deserves comfort. And you do. Now let's explore one more layer, identity. Because as you age, your identity shifts in ways that are both subtle and profound. And that shift, my friend, changes your social needs more than you might realize. In earlier stages of life, much of your identity is shaped by your roles. You're a parent raising kids, a professional climbing a career ladder, a volunteer, a mentor, a neighbor, a caregiver. These roles come with built-in communities. You bond with other parents at school functions, co-workers at office events, friends of friends at social clubs. But when those roles fade, when the kids are grown, when you retire, when you downsize or move, those social ties loosen. The people you once had so much in common with may no longer walk your same path. It doesn't mean they're gone forever, but the closeness changes. The rhythms change. The sense of shared identity fades. It can feel disorienting at first. You might wonder why you don't feel as connected anymore, even with people you once saw every week. But the truth is, your life has moved into a new rhythm, and theirs may not match it anymore. That's not your fault. That's just life moving forward. This new stage of identity can be a lonely adjustment at first, but eventually it becomes liberating. You're no longer defined by your job, your children, your schedule. You begin redefining who you are on your own terms. And with that comes the freedom to refine your circle, too. You realize, not every friendship is meant to last forever. Not every relationship needs to be revived. Some people were meant for a season, not a lifetime. And letting go of outdated connections isn't a failure. It's a gift to yourself. You begin to cherish the quieter connections. The one friend who calls just to check in. The neighbor who brings you soup without asking. The cousin you only talk to once a month, but always have a meaningful exchange with. Those become your people. That's your new circle. It may be smaller, but it's richer. And the space that opens up when you let go of forced connection, that space becomes a sanctuary. You fill it with things your soul actually craves now. Mornings with no noise. Walks without conversation. Reading a book without distraction. Sitting by a window with a warm drink and no need to entertain anyone. That's not you becoming cold. That's you coming home to yourself. So here you are, in a chapter of life where everything has shifted. Your time, your energy, your roles, even your relationships. And yet, the world around you still clings to old expectations. People might say things like, "You used to be so outgoing," or "You never miss events, what happened?" And the truth? You have changed. But this change wasn't sudden. It wasn't a sharp turn off a cliff. It was slow, like the tide gently pulling back from the shore. It happened over hundreds of mornings and thousands of small realizations. It's the accumulation of wisdom, not weariness. You no longer want to be the life of the party. You want to live life on your terms. You no longer feel the need to prove that you're still fun, still active, still engaged. Because being seen isn't the same as being understood. And now, you value understanding far more. You've realized that your peace, your genuine, deep soul-level peace, is worth more than other people's approval. You've stopped saying yes out of habit. You've stopped attending things just to avoid disappointing someone else. You've learned how to say no with grace, and yes, only when your heart is in it. And maybe people don't get it. Maybe they miss the old version of you who always said yes, always smiled, always entertained. But let's be honest, you don't miss that version. Because of this version of you feels real, grounded, clear. You've learned that there's no prize for burning yourself out just to keep everyone else comfortable. There's no trophy for being the most accommodating, the most available, the most present in other people's lives, if it means being absent in your own. So yes, your world may have gotten quieter, but in that quiet, something beautiful has emerged: clarity. Because that's what aging gives you when you allow it. Not just wisdom, but vision. Not just freedom from others' expectations, but freedom from your own old patterns too. You begin to see things for what they are. The flattery that once fooled you now feels hollow. The one-sided friendships become obvious after a single phone call. The need to explain yourself fades. You stop justifying why you left early, or why you didn't answer that text, or why you're not coming to the gathering this weekend. You no longer feel obligated to fill every silence with speech, every gap in your calendar with company. You've stopped mistaking busyness for connection. You now know the difference between noise and meaning, between people who like being around you and people who truly see you. And all of this letting go, this pulling back, this simplifying, might look like loneliness from the outside. But from the inside, it feels like relief. It feels like peace finally settling into your bones. There's a saying that's grown truer with each passing year. As I grow older, I pay less attention to what people say. I just watch what they do. That's what age gives you, the gift of observation over reaction. You no longer need to jump into every conversation, defend every decision, or join every event. You become more still, more present, more discerning. And you begin to realize something else too, something almost ironic. When you stop needing people around all the time, when you stop chasing connection just to avoid stillness, the right people start showing up. Not the loudest ones, not the ones with the biggest smiles or the longest histories, but the right ones. The ones who love the quieter version of you, the real version. You stop forcing conversations. They begin to flow naturally. You stop managing relationships like a job, and the few that remain start feeling lighter, easier. You stop scheduling companionship, and instead, it finds you. Those few people who stay, they're not just friends. They're soulmates. Not in the romantic sense, but in the deeper sense. The ones who see you, respect your boundaries, and honor your presence, whether you show up once a week or once a year. So if your calendar's a little emptier these days, if the phone hasn't rung much, if your weekend plans involve quiet hours and no visitors, don't panic. Don't feel like you're disappearing. You're not becoming invisible. You're becoming aligned. You're peeling away everything that doesn't serve you. You're not avoiding people. You're avoiding patterns that exhausted you for years. You're not becoming less social. You're becoming more you. And that version of you? That's the one that's been waiting for decades to breathe. And if you're sitting there thinking, this is exactly how I feel, but I've never been able to explain it, then maybe, just maybe, this is the moment you stop trying to explain it. Because the beauty of this stage in life is that you don't owe anyone an explanation anymore. Not for the quiet, not for the solitude, not for the stillness. You've earned this peace. You've walked through storms. You've given your all to people and causes and communities. You've shown up when it wasn't convenient. You've poured from an empty cup more times than you can count. And now you rest. You simplify. You protect what's left. And here's one final thought, something most people never tell you. This shift you're experiencing, this instinct to protect your energy, your boundaries, your heart, it's not just good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health too. Studies have shown that when you reduce stress, when you avoid toxic conversations, when you choose serenity over obligation, your body responds. Your immune system strengthens. Your heart rate steadies. Your sleep improves. Your mind clears. You heal. So no, you're not fading. You're not withdrawing. You're not broken. You're blooming. You're stepping into the most honest, powerful version of yourself you've ever known. And if that version is quieter, calmer, more selective, that's not something to fix. That's something to celebrate. Maybe your life now is less noisy, less crowded, less full of events. But maybe, just maybe, it finally fits you. And that's what it means to arrive. So if this message feels like it saw you better than most people do lately, don't let it be the last time we talk. Subscribe to this channel. We're building a quiet little corner here, just for folks like you. No noise, no pressure. Just real talk, soul-deep stories, and the kind of peace you've more than earned. You're not alone. You're just finally with yourself.